The bracelet mistake. The dusty air was thick with the scent of metal and something strange, something alien. David Carter had never seen a place like this before. The ruins stretched as far as his eyes could see, covered in vines that glowed faintly in the dim light. He had only landed on this planet a few hours ago, but every step deeper into the ruins made him feel uneasy. Still, curiosity pushed him forward. David was an explorer, but not the kind who worked for big corporations. He was a scrapper, a man who searched abandoned planets for valuable artifacts. If he found something rare, he could sell it for a fortune. That's why he was here. Rumors spoke of lost treasures hidden beneath the ruins of Typhos 9, a planet long forgotten. He stepped into what looked like an ancient throne room. The walls were carved with symbols, some glowing faintly. At the center of the room, resting on a pedestal, was something unexpected. A bracelet. It was silver, smooth, and shimmered under the dim light. Strange symbols covered its surface, shifting as if alive. David frowned. This is it, a bracelet. Disappointed, he picked it up. The metal was cool against his skin, and a strange hum filled the air. He had no idea what it was, but it didn't look dangerous. He had seen plenty of weird alien tech before. Without thinking, he slipped the bracelet onto his wrist. A sudden shockwave burst through the air. The symbols on the walls flared to life, glowing a bright blue. The ground trembled beneath him, dust and debris falling from the ceiling. The bracelet grew hot, burning against his skin. David tried to take it off. It wouldn't budge. What the hell? A loud alarm blared, echoing through the ruins. Then, out of nowhere, a voice rang through the air. UPUTONVEBRACLET. David spun around, heart pounding. A figure stood at the entrance of the throne room. A girl, but not a human. She was tall, with deep blue skin, sharp golden eyes, and strange markings running down her arms. Her long silver hair floated slightly, as if touched by invisible wind. She wore armor that looked ancient yet advanced, a mix of metal and fabric that shimmered under the glowing lights. David had met aliens before, but none like her. The girl took a step forward, her expression a mix of shock and horror. You absolute fool. Do you have any idea what you've done? David blinked. Put on a bracelet. The girl's eyes flashed with fury. That's not just a bracelet. That's a soul bond relic. And now, she pointed at his wrist, voice shaking. Now we're bonded for life. David's stomach dropped. Wait. What? Before the girl could answer, the ruin shook again, harder this time. The air grew heavy, and a deep, distant roar echoed through the halls. The girl's face paled. They're coming, she whispered. David's instincts screamed danger. Who's coming? He asked, taking a step back. She grabbed his arm, eyes blazing. No time. We need to run. Now. David didn't argue. Together, they sprinted out of the throne room, dodging falling debris as the ruins trembled around them. The alarm was still blaring, sending eerie echoes through the corridors. Behind them, the roaring grew louder. David risked a glance over his shoulder. His blood turned to ice. Dark figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing red. They were tall, armored, and armed with energy weapons. Their movements were unnaturally smooth, like hunters stalking their prey. The girl cursed under her breath. They're Krell hunters, she said, pulling David faster. They must have detected the relic's activation, and now they'll stop at nothing to take it. She looked at him, jaw clenched. Or take you. David felt a cold chill rush down his spine. This was bad. He had come to this planet looking for treasure. Instead, he had just bonded himself to an alien girl and triggered an ancient alarm. And now they were being hunted. As they ran, the bracelet on his wrist glowed brighter. He could feel something stirring inside him, something powerful. But what? He didn't have time to figure it out. The Krell were closing in. and escape was looking impossible. A dangerous connection. The ruins trembled beneath their feet as David Carter ran for his life. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling, the ancient stone walls shaking with the force of an unseen power. Behind him, the alien girl pulled him forward, her grip stronger than any human's. Her golden eyes burned with urgency, her silver hair whipping around her face as she moved. "Faster! They're gaining on us," she hissed. David didn't need to look back to know she was right. The deep guttural growls echoing behind them were more than enough to send terror crawling up his spine. The Krell hunters were close, their red, glowing eyes like burning embers in the shadows. "Who the hell are they?" David gasped, barely dodging a jagged piece of falling debris. "Killers," the girl shot back. "They track artifacts like this one, and they don't leave survivors." David glanced at the bracelet on his wrist, still pulsing with an eerie, shifting light. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. Putting it on had been a mistake. A big mistake. Something whizzed past his ear. A bolt of searing blue energy. It struck the wall beside him, blasting a hole through the thick stone. David cursed. They were shooting at him now. "Where are we going?" he yelled. The girl suddenly yanked him sideways into a dark passageway. The moment they turned the corner, she slammed him against the wall, pressing a finger against his lips. Silence. David's pulse thundered in his ears as heavy footsteps pounded past the entrance of the corridor. The Krell were moving fast, their growls vibrating through the walls. For a long moment, they didn't move. Finally, the girl exhaled, her body relaxing slightly. She stepped back but didn't let go of his arm. Her grip was still firm. David looked at her, really seeing her for the first time. Her skin was deep blue, marked with faint, glowing lines that pulsed like veins of energy. Her golden eyes watched him with suspicion and something else. Fear. "Okay," David breathed. "We're safe for now. Can you please tell me what's going on?" The girl hesitated. Then, with a sigh, she muttered, "I am Syra of the Seren people. And thanks to you, we are now bonded." David blinked. "Bonded?" Syra scowled, gesturing to the bracelet. "That is a soul bond relic. It was never meant to be worn by an outsider. Only the royal bloodline can activate it." David stared at her. "Royal bloodline? Are you saying I'm—" "No," she snapped. "You are not Seren. But for some reason, the bracelet accepted you, and now it cannot be removed." David tugged at it again, as if testing her words. Nothing. It didn't even budge. "Great," he muttered. "So what does it do?" Tahira's gaze darkened. "It binds two souls together. Permanently." David froze. "Permanently? As in, forever?" Zyra's fists clenched. "Yes." A wave of panic crashed over him. He barely knew this girl, and now she was saying they were bonded for life. "No, no, no. There has to be a way to remove it," David argued. Zyra looked away. "If there is, I do not know it." The reality of the situation sank in like a heavy weight. He wasn't just in trouble. He was trapped in something he didn't understand. A sudden noise shattered the silence. A low, metallic beeping echoed from deeper in the corridor. Zyra tensed. "They're scanning for us," she whispered. "We need to move." David exhaled sharply. "Fine. But after this, you're explaining EVER.
Zyra nodded. "Follow me." The escape route. They moved quickly through the dark passageway, the walls narrowing around them. David noticed the symbols on the walls. They weren't just decorations. They shifted as they walked past, almost reacting to the bracelet. Something about this place recognized him. Zyra seemed to notice too. Her eyes flickered with curiosity, but she didn't say anything. The passage opened into a large chamber, dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the ceiling. In the center sat an ancient transport platform, half buried in dust and rubble. Hyra hurried to the control panel, her fingers flying over strange symbols. "What is this?" David asked. "A teleportation device," she answered, focused. "It should take us to the surface, away from the Krell." David's heart leaped with relief. Finally, something useful. But before he could respond, a deep, menacing growl came from behind them.
They spun around. The Krell were here. The largest of them, a towering beast with armor plating fused to its body, stepped forward. His red eyes locked onto David. "The human has bonded with the relic," the Krell leader snarled. "Kill him." David barely had time to react. The Krell lunged, awakening the power. David raised his arms to shield himself, but before the impact, the bracelet flared to life. A shockwave of energy burst from his wrist, blasting the Krell backward with a force so strong that cracks split through the floor. David stumbled, gasping. His entire body tingled with strange energy. Zyra's eyes widened. Impossible. David stared at his hand, which was still glowing faintly. He had no idea what just happened, but one thing was certain. The bracelet had just saved his life. The Krell weren't down for long. They were already getting back up, their eyes burning with rage. Zyra grabbed David's arm. "The platform is ready." Now, David didn't hesitate. They leaped onto the platform just as the Krell charged forward. With a final flash of blue light, the teleportation device activated, and they vanished. The chase, a flash of blue light, swallowed them whole. For a moment, David Carter felt weightless, as if the universe itself had blinked out of existence. His vision swirled with streaks of light, and his stomach twisted in ways it definitely wasn't supposed to. Then, bam! David crashed onto solid ground, coughing as a cloud of dust rose around him. His ears rang from the impact, and his head spun like he'd just gotten off the worst roller coaster of his life. "Teleportation sucks," he groaned. Beside him, Zyra landed gracefully, her alien reflexes keeping her steady. She barely looked fazed, but the moment she turned, her golden eyes widened in alarm. "Get up. We have to move." David barely had time to react before something exploded behind him. A surge of heat and energy rushed past him as the teleportation platform erupted in flames. Huge chunks of metal and stone rained down, forcing him to scramble forward. He didn't need to look back to know what had happened. The Krell were still after them. No safe place to run. David and Sarah had landed inside a massive cavern. The walls were lined with bioluminescent crystals, their eerie glow casting long shadows. Ancient metal structures, half ruined, half functional, stretched across the cavern floor like the remains of a long-lost city. It was breathtaking. It was also completely abandoned. David looked around, panting. "Where the hell are we?" Zyra didn't answer. Instead, she placed a hand on the cavern wall, feeling the rough surface beneath her fingers. Her expression tightened. "The teleportation malfunctioned. We were supposed to reach the surface, but instead, we ended up in the underdepths." David ran a hand through his messy hair. "The underdepths. That doesn't sound good." Zyra shook her head. "It isn't." A deep mechanical rumble vibrated through the ground. David felt the hairs on his arms stand up. Zyra's golden eyes flicked to his wrist. The bracelet glowed again, pulsing like a heartbeat. "They're tracking the relic," she muttered. "We need to keep moving before." She didn't get to finish. From the far end of the cavern, 3 figures stepped into view. David's breath caught in his throat. The Krell hunters had found them, hunted like prey. The Krell leader, a towering brute with glowing red eyes, unsheathed a blade from his wrist, a serrated, energy-coated weapon that hummed dangerously. He tilted his head, focusing his gaze on David. "The human wears the relic," the Krell rumbled. His voice was deep, vibrating through the cavern like rolling thunder. "Surrender it, and we will make your death painless." David took a shaky step back. "Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that offer." Zyra hissed. "Run." David didn't need to be told twice. The moment he turned, the Krell attacked. The leader lunged forward, moving with inhuman speed, his energy blades slicing through the air. David barely dodged, his instincts kicking in just in time to avoid decapitation. Zara pulled out a sleek, silver dagger, spinning it in her grip before blocking a second Krell's strike. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. David's heart pounded. He wasn't a fighter. He was an explorer, a scrapper. He wasn't built for this kind of battle. But the Krell didn't care. One of them, a massive warrior covered in thick, obsidian armor, charged straight at him. David tried to move, too slow. The Krell swung his massive fist, and the bracelet reacted. A shockwave of blue energy burst outward, flinging the Krell backward as if hit by an invisible force. David stumbled, staring at his own hand. The energy still hummed beneath his skin, alive, pulsing through his veins. What the hell was happening to him? Sarah saw it too, her eyes widening. David, the relic, it's sensing with you. David didn't have time to process that. The Krell leader snarled, pushing himself up from the ground. Enough games. He raised a fist, a signal. From the cavern ceiling, a metallic drone detached itself from the shadows. David looked up just in time to see the drone's glowing red eye lock onto him. And then, bang, a blast of energy shot toward him. David braced for impact. But it never came. Instead, Syra threw herself in front of him, blocking the blast with her dagger. The force sent her skidding back, her boots dragging across the cavern floor. David's stomach twisted. She had just saved his life. The Krell leader stepped forward, smirking. You cannot run forever, little human. The relic belongs to us. And soon, so will you. David clenched his fists. The bracelet burned against his skin. But this time, he welcomed the heat. He wasn't about to let these monsters take him. He wasn't about to let them hurt Syra, either. The last exit. Zara grabbed his wrist. There's only one way out. She pointed to the far end of the cavern, where a massive rusted transport ship lay half-buried in rubble. David frowned. That thing doesn't look like it's flown in years. Syra's lips curled into a smirk. Then let's hope the engine still works. David didn't argue. Together, they bolted toward the ship, dodging plasma fire as the Krell rained down shots from behind. David leaped onto the ramp. Syra right behind him. Close the hatch, she shouted. David slammed his fist into the panel. The ship's doors groaned, creaking loudly as they began to shut. The Krell leader charged forward, his blade slicing through the air. The doors sealed shut. A loud bang rattled through the ship as the Krell's blade struck metal. For a moment, silence. Then, David let out a breath. They had escaped. For now. Zyra ran to the control panel, flicking switches. The ship rumbled, systems flickering back to life. David collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, his heart still racing. I hate this planet, he muttered. Zyra laughed breathlessly. We're not safe yet. The Krell will come after us again. David looked down at the glowing bracelet on his wrist. Something told him that this was only the beginning. Ancient secrets and betrayal. The ship lurched violently, engines groaning as they fought against years of neglect. Metal creaked beneath David's feet, and for a terrifying moment, he thought the whole thing was going to fall apart midair. He gripped the armrest, knuckles white. This thing better not explode. Thyra, seated at the pilot's console, didn't look nearly as concerned. Her fingers moved across the glowing alien controls with effortless precision. Relax, human. It's an old serene vessel, built to last. The ship shuddered, then finally steadied, breaking free from the underground cavern. In the distance, the Krell hunters stood motionless at the entrance of the ruins, their red eyes glowing like dying embers. David exhaled, shoulders slumping in relief. They had escaped. For now. An unwanted bond. The adrenaline finally wore off, and reality sank in like a weight on David's chest. He looked down at the bracelet on his wrist, still pulsing softly, its symbols shifting in an unnatural way. It felt alive. He turned to Zaira. Okay. No more running. No more vague answers. What the hell is this thing? Zaira didn't answer immediately. Instead, she exhaled sharply, as if she had been hoping to avoid this conversation. Finally, she leaned back, crossing her arms. It's called the Australis relic, a sacred artifact of my people. David narrowed his eyes. Yeah, you said that before, and you also said it bonded us. Care to explain what that actually means? Zaira hesitated, then nodded. The bond is permanent. It is a connection of mind, body, and energy. In Seren culture, it is only meant for two individuals who are chosen. David felt a pit form in his stomach. Chosen. Zaira's golden eyes flickered with something he couldn't quite read. Life mates. David nearly choked. I'm sorry. What ate? Zaira winced, clearly not thrilled about it either. Trust me, human, I'm not any happier about this than you are. David ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what she was saying. So let me get this straight. This thing bonded us. For life, like some kind of forced space marriage. Zaira frowned. Marriage isn't the right word. The bond is deeper than that. It links our souls, our energy, our fates. David slumped back into his seat, groaning. Oh, great. So I'm stuck with an alien girl who doesn't even like me, while a bunch of space murderers are trying to kill me. Fantastic. Zaira glared at him. It's not exactly my dream scenario either, Carter. David let out a frustrated sigh, but something else nagged at him. He looked down at the bracelet again. Why me? You said only royal bloodlines can activate it. Zaira's expression darkened. That? I don't know. David didn't believe that for a second. A hidden destination. The ship's console beeped, snapping them both out of their argument. Zaira turned back to the controls, scanning the readout. Her expression shifted to confusion. That's not right. David leaned forward. What? Zaira tapped the screen. The relic. It's transmitting coordinates. David's eyebrows furrowed. To where? Zaira hesitated. Somewhere deep in the outer veil. David didn't like the sound of that. The outer veil was a dead zone, uncharted space, filled with black holes, ancient ruins, and things that even seasoned explorers didn't dare mess with. Why would it send us there? He asked. Zaira shook her head. I don't know. But she glanced at him, looking uncertain for the first time. I think the relic wants us to go. David felt a cold chill crawl down his spine. Wants us. The bracelet flared suddenly, its glow intensifying, as if it was confirming her words. David swallowed hard. He didn't like this. Not one bit. But something told him they didn't have a choice. A betrayal in the shadows. The ship's engines hummed as it cut through the black void of space, heading toward the outer veil. Zaira was at the controls, focused on navigating through the upcoming debris fields. David sat beside her, still staring at the bracelet, still trying to wrap his head around everything. Then a soft beep sounded from the ship's console. Zaira frowned. An incoming transmission. David leaned closer. From who? Zaira tapped a few buttons, and a holographic screen flickered to life. A figure appeared, a hooded silhouette, face obscured by shadows. A distorted voice echoed through the cockpit. Zaira, you need to turn back. Zaira's breath caught. David looked between her and the screen. Who is that? Zaira didn't answer. The hooded figure continued. You should not have bonded with the human. You are playing with forces you do not understand. David felt his skin prickle. Okay, seriously, who is this guy? Zaira's jaw tightened. His name is Cal. He was once my mentor. David narrowed his eyes. And now? Zyra hesitated. Now he works for the Krell. David stiffened. So he's a traitor. Kel's voice remained calm. Listen to me, Zyra. The relic is not what you think it is. If you keep going down this path, you will awaken something that should remain buried. Zyra stood abruptly, fists clenched. You always told me to trust in the relics, to follow my fate. Kale sighed. Some fates should be abandoned. Before Zyra could respond, the transmission cut out. A tense silence followed. David exhaled. Well, that wasn't ominous at all. Zyra sat down, rubbing her temples. Kale was one of the most respected elders of my people. If he's warning me to turn back, then something is seriously wrong. David frowned. Do you believe him? Zyra hesitated. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. David leaned back, staring at the glowing bracelet. One thing was certain. Whatever they were heading toward, it was bigger than they realized. And if Kel was right, they might not survive it. The final trial. The ship tore through the dark void of space, cutting across the endless stretch of stars toward the outer veil, a region of uncharted, forgotten worlds. Inside the cockpit, the air was thick with tension. David Carter sat in the co-pilot's seat, staring at the glowing bracelet on his wrist. No matter how much he twisted, pulled, or even tried prying it off with a tool from the ship's supply kit, it wouldn't budge. It wasn't just stuck. It was part of him now. Across the console, Thyra sat in deep thought, her fingers hovering over the navigation system. The words of her former mentor, Kel, still rang in her mind. You should not have bonded with the human. If you keep going down this path, you will awaken something that should remain buried. A warning, a threat, or something worse. Zyra shook the doubt from her mind. They had come too far to turn back. David exhaled, finally breaking the silence. All right, let's just be honest with each other. This is a terrible idea. Thyra glanced at him, unimpressed. We don't have a choice. David leaned forward, pointing at the glowing coordinates flashing on the screen. This relic is sending us into deep space, towards some unknown planet that's not even on the star maps. And the last guy who knew anything about it told us to turn back. That's two giant red flags. Zyra's expression remained unreadable. The relic chose you for a reason, Carter. We need to find out why. David ran a hand through his hair. Yeah, and what if that reason is human sacrifice? Zyra didn't answer. A warning alarm blared suddenly, shaking the ship from its autopilot. Zyra's gaze snapped to the console. We're here. The swirling mass of dark clouds and lightning storms outside the viewport made David's stomach sink. A planet lay before them. A ruined, desolate world covered in the wreckage of ancient cities. Great stone obelisks jutted from the surface, cracked and broken by time. Jagged mountains stretched toward the sky, their peaks covered in storms that never ended. The relic pulsed faster. The bracelet wanted them to land here. David let out a breath. Yup, definitely a terrible idea. Descent into the Forgotten Temple. The ship shook violently as they entered the planet's atmosphere, turbulence rocking them side to side. Thyra gritted her teeth, forcing the controls steady. They cut through the thick storm clouds, weaving past bolts of violet lightning that danced across the sky. The moment they broke through, the ground came into view. A vast desert wasteland littered with the remains of structures from a civilization long gone. David's grip tightened on the seat. What the hell happened here? Zyra's gaze swept over the ruins, her golden eyes narrowing. This was once a Saren colony. David frowned. Your people lived here. Zyra nodded. A long time ago, before the collapse. The ship hovered over a massive circular temple, its walls lined with towering statues of ancient warriors, their faces weathered and broken. At the center of the temple grounds stood a giant stone doorway, covered in glowing inscriptions, the same symbols that pulsed on David's bracelet. The relic had led them here. Zyra landed the ship with a soft thud, shutting off the engines. A heavy silence filled the cockpit. David swallowed. "Let me guess. We have to go inside." Sarah gave a small smirk. "I thought this was a terrible idea." David sighed, unbuckling his seatbelt. "Yeah, well, I'm already cursed with alien soul magic, so might as well commit." The trial begins. The air outside was thick and electric, the storm rumbling in the distance as they stepped toward the massive stone gate. David's bracelet glowed brighter, responding to something within the temple. Ira placed a hand on the stone, tracing the ancient markings. "This is a trial gate," she murmured. "A test. Only those who are chosen may enter." David raised an eyebrow. "And what happens to those who aren't chosen?" Ira didn't answer. The relic pulsed again, this time stronger. Without warning, the stone groaned and shifted, splitting open as a deep, resonating chime echoed through the ruins. A staircase spiraled downward into the darkness. David let out a breath. Yeah, totally not a trap. Zyra smirked. Too late to back out now. Together, they descended into the depths. Visions of the past. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed. It became heavy, alive with an unseen force. The deeper they walked, the more the walls seemed to whisper, soft, distant voices, like echoes from another time. David felt something stir inside him. His breath came shorter. His heart pounded. Then, a flash of light exploded in his vision. David stumbled back, gasping. But when he opened his eyes, he was somewhere else. The ruins were gone. The temple was whole. He stood in a grand hall, bathed in golden light. The air smelled of incense and fire, and towering figures in ceremonial robes moved around him. Serene people, thousands of them. At the center of it all stood a throne, and on it, a man wearing the same bracelet David now wore. David's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a vision. This was the past. Zyra's voice snapped him back to reality. "David, are you all right?" He gasped, blinking as the temple returned to its ruined state. The golden light was gone. The people vanished. Zyra gripped his arm, concern in her eyes. David swallowed hard. "I saw them." Zyra frowned. "Saw who?" David turned to her, voice shaky. "Your ancestors. This place wasn't just a temple. It was a throne room, a kingdom." Zyra stiffened. "You saw the first king." David hesitated. "I think I was him." A tense silence hung between them. Before either of them could process what that meant, the ground beneath them shook violently. The temple's inner doors slammed shut behind them, sealing them inside. A deep, ancient voice rumbled from the darkness ahead. "You who wear the Australis relic, step forward. The trial begins." David's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a test. This was a reckoning. The last stand. A deep rumble echoed through the temple's vast, dark chamber. Dust and sand trembled beneath David's feet as the ancient voice boomed again, resonating in his bones. "You who wear the Australis relic, step forward. The trial begins." David swallowed hard. The chamber around them was massive, stretching into an endless abyss. Giant statues of warriors lined the circular walls, their stone faces worn by time but still watching. Strange blue symbols glowed faintly on the floor, pulsating in rhythm with the relic on his wrist. David turned to Zyra, his voice uneasy. "Tell me this is just some kind of hologram test." Zyra's expression was grim. "No, this is real." David's stomach twisted. Of course it was. The Guardian awakens. The ground shook violently, and from the far end of the chamber, something moved. A massive stone door cracked open, and a deep growl vibrated through the air. David instinctively stepped back, his heartbeat hammering in his chest. Then, a shadow emerged from the darkness, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was towering, at least 15 feet tall, made of dark stone, and glowing veins of blue energy. It had the shape of a warrior, but moved with an unnatural grace, its heavy steps echoing like thunder. The guardian of the trial. David's breath caught in his throat. Okay, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. The guardian's eyes flared, and it raised a massive energy axe, its blade humming with raw power. Then, with a roar, it charged. The fight for survival. David barely had time to react before the axe came crashing down. He dove to the side just in time, the impact sending a shockwave through the temple. The floor cracked apart, chunks of stone flying in all directions. Sarah was already moving, her daggers flashing as she leaped toward the guardian, slicing at its armored leg. The blade clanged uselessly against the stone. "Bad news," she called. "It's completely reinforced." David scrambled up, panting. "So what's the plan?" Zira barely dodged another swing of the guardian's axe. "Survive." "Fantastic." The guardian roared again, swinging its massive arm, this time directly at David. Something inside him reacted. Before he even thought about it, the bracelet on his wrist flared to life, and his body moved on its own. A shockwave erupted from him, throwing him backward, but not onto the ground. He was floating. David's eyes widened in shock. The energy from the relic had lifted him into the air. He hovered for a moment, his entire body surging with power. Zira's eyes widened. "David, you." She didn't get to finish. The guardian lunged again, its axe aimed straight for him. David threw up his hands instinctively, and the energy exploded outward. A massive barrier of blue light formed around him, deflecting the axe's attack in a burst of energy. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the chamber, shaking the very foundation of the temple. David stared at his hands in disbelief. "Did I just?" Zira didn't hesitate. "You're channeling the relic's power. Keep going." David wasn't sure how to keep going, but the guardian wasn't giving him a choice. It roared again, lifting its axe for another deadly strike. David gritted his teeth. "All right, fine. Let's see what this thing can do." Tapping into the relic's power, the bracelet pulsed, and a rush of energy surged through David's veins. He could feel it. A connection, like a forgotten memory surfacing in his mind. He moved on instinct, his speed doubling, dodging the guardian's attack with ease. The relic's energy flared, forming glowing blue weapons in his hands, two curved blades made of pure energy. David barely had time to process it before the guardian attacked again. This time, he didn't dodge. He countered. Moving faster than he thought possible, David spun to the side, slashing his energy blades across the guardian's stone legs. The weapons cut deep, too deep. The guardian stumbled, a low, pained rumble escaping its chest. David's eyes widened. "I can actually hurt it." Zira smirked. "Then don't stop now." David launched forward, fueled by the relic's power. He moved like a blur, striking at the guardian's weak points, its stone armor cracking under the assault. The ancient beast roared, but it was slower now, its movements heavy and staggered. David saw his opening. He leaped into the air, the relic's power lifting him higher, his blades glowing with blinding energy. With a final battle cry, he brought both blades down and struck the guardian's core. The chamber erupted with light. The guardian falls. The massive warrior froze, cracks spreading through its body like a shattered mirror. Its glowing core dimmed, flickering weakly. Then, with a final low rumble, the guardian collapsed, its massive form crumbling into dust. Silence filled the chamber. David stood over the remains, his chest heaving, his body still buzzing with residual energy. Zara approached, her golden eyes filled with something between awe and disbelief. "You did it," she whispered. David let out a breathless chuckle. "Yeah. I have no idea how." The relic on his wrist flashed one last time, then dimmed. The trial was over. But before they could celebrate, the temple shook violently again. Zira stiffened, Something's happening. David turned, his stomach dropping. At the far end of the chamber, a hidden door was opening. Beyond it, a throne. And on it, something ancient and waiting. The relic pulsed again, and a voice whispered in David's mind. The first king has returned. David's blood ran cold. The truth and the future. A deep, unearthly silence filled the chamber. David stood frozen, his heart pounding, his breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The dust from the fallen guardian still hung in the air, swirling around him like ghostly remnants of the past. But it wasn't over. At the far end of the chamber, the hidden door had fully opened. Beyond it, bathed in the soft glow of ancient flickering lights, was a throne. A throne that had been waiting. David swallowed hard. The relic on his wrist pulsed with a slow, rhythmic beat, almost like a heart. A voice echoed in his mind, soft yet powerful. The first king has returned. He turned to Exira, but she was just as stunned as he was. Her golden eyes flickered with 1,000 emotions: shock, disbelief, fear. "This isn't possible," she murmured. "The first king is a legend, a myth." David took a shaky step forward, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Yeah. Well, apparently, I'm part of that myth now." The throne of the first king. The throne was massive, carved from obsidian and laced with glowing blue veins, similar to the ones on David's relic. Intricate serene inscriptions covered its surface, telling a story only the worthy could read. But as David approached, something even stranger happened. The relic's glow spread across his arm, his chest, his entire body, tracing its energy through his veins like an ancient code unlocking itself. Then, the throne responded. A deep humming filled the air, the entire chamber shaking slightly, as if the very planet recognized him. David hesitated. He wasn't sure what would happen if he touched it. But something inside him said he had to. Slowly, he reached out and placed his hand on the armrest of the throne. The moment his fingers touched the stone, a wave of memories exploded into his mind. Visions of the forgotten empire. He saw ***, a great civilization, ***, the Serene Empire at its peak. Towers of light stretching across distant worlds. Starships that could bend space itself. A people united under one ruler. And then, war. A dark force descending from the void. The Krell. He saw the final battle, the empire on the brink of collapse. The first king, a warrior in gleaming armor, wearing the same relic David now bore, making a desperate choice. A choice to seal away the relic's power. A choice to disappear. David gasped, staggering back as the vision shattered around him. His breathing was ragged. His hands trembled. The first king didn't die. He left. And somehow his power had chosen David. Zera caught his arm, steadying him. "What did you see?" David exhaled. The truth. The Krell's final move. Before Zira could respond, a deep rumble shook the chamber. David's head snapped up, instincts kicking into overdrive. That wasn't the temple. Zira's face darkened. No, that was outside. A deep mechanical screech echoed through the ruins. And then, a blast of red light tore through the temple ceiling. David and Zira jumped back just in time as the stone above them collapsed inward, blocking the throne behind a wall of rubble. David coughed through the dust. What the hell was that? Zira's expression hardened. The Krell. Another blast shook the temple, and suddenly, dozens of red-lit drones swarmed through the broken ceiling, scanning the area with their glowing mechanical eyes. Then, from the gaping hole above, a dark warship descended, its shadow swallowing the temple ruins. David's heart sank as a familiar figure stepped into view, the Krell warlord. The final confrontation. The Krell leader stood at the edge of the broken temple, his red eyes glowing with malicious intent. His black armor shimmered with pulsing energy, and in his hand he held a massive curved energy blade. David felt an icy weight settle in his chest. The warlord's gaze locked onto him. "The relic does not belong to you, human," the warlord rumbled. "It belongs to the Krell. Surrender it, and I may let you live." David took a slow step forward, squaring his shoulders. "Yeah, well, I don't think the relic agrees with you." The warlord's jaw tightened. "Then you die." The last stand. The drones opened fire first, red energy bolts raining down in a deadly barrage. David instinctively raised his arm, and the relic's power flared to life. A shield of blue energy erupted around him and Xyra, absorbing the attacks. Xyra's daggers flashed, slicing through the first wave of drones as she moved like lightning. David felt the relic's power surging through him again, stronger than before. He leaped into the air, the energy in his veins responding instantly. His hands formed glowing weapons, two curved energy blades, just like before. The warlord charged, swinging his massive blade straight at David's head. David countered, crossing his weapons in a flash of blue light. The impact sent shockwaves through the ruins, shattering stone and throwing dust into the air. Their battle exploded into motion. The warlord was fast, unnaturally fast for something his size. His strikes were brutal, relentless, forcing David onto the defensive. But David wasn't the same person he was before. He had changed. The relic had chosen him. With a burst of speed, he dodged a fatal strike, twisting behind the warlord and driving his blades deep into his armor. The warlord roared in pain, stumbling forward. David didn't let up. He slashed again, blue energy cracking through the Krell's defenses. Xyra moved in a blur, joining the fight, her dagger sinking into the warlord's exposed side. The warlord staggered back, his red eyes flickering. For the first time, he looked afraid. David's body burned with the relic's power, his veins lit with energy. He could feel it. This was it, the final blow. With a final battle cry, he thrust his blade forward and struck the warlord's core. The end of the battle. A deep, echoing silence followed. The warlord gasped, his body shuddering. His red eyes flickered, dimming, before his entire form collapsed into dust. The drones deactivated instantly, crashing to the ground in lifeless heaps. David stumbled back, his energy fading, the relic growing dim once more. It was over. The Krell leader was dead. Xyra stood beside him, breathing hard, her golden eyes flickering with something he hadn't seen before. Pride. "You did it," she whispered. David let out a breathless laugh. "Yeah, we did. A new future." They stood there, watching as the sun rose over the ruined temple, golden light washing over the ancient battlefield. David looked down at the relic on his wrist. It was still there, still bound to him. But now, he wasn't afraid of it. He had been chosen for a reason. And whatever came next, he was ready. Xyra smirked. "So, where to next, human?" David grinned. "Let's see what's out there."